just flip-flop song, singing to that highway song. Got a little naive smile, the kind that drives you out. Nothing like playing with fire, brings boy to life. Beat you with a fuse you light, you're good, you're dynamite. You made my day when you walked into town beside me, whispered with your eyes, let's go. You made me say what's your name, girl, you're lonely. Can I call you if I ever go down this road? And I can't seem to find the thing I want.
The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
14:20 in the morning, 14 minutes and 20 seconds worth of sports talk to get you through your daily commute. Hot takes, recaps, best bets, and a little humor to get your day going in the right direction. Sit back, grab your coffee, and let's get into it. 14:20 in the morning for this June the 15th, 2023. Today's show is brought to you by Caldera Labs and calderalab.com. Use promo code 1420lab at calderalab.com and keep your face, keep that youthful exuberance in your face all summer long. Remember, we are part of the Belly Up Media Network. Go to bellyupsports.com to read all of the great articles and listen to more great podcasts, such as the Brutally Honest Sports Podcast with friend of the show, Aaron Riley, who joins us today on 14:20 in the morning to talk a little bit of baseball. How you doing today, Aaron?
I can't complain, especially, I mean, we're talking baseball. I can never complain, and I'm glad to be here.
No, that's good. We'll start with the Philadelphia Phillies right in your area, then we'll move on to your team since you're youth. Well, not that you're old now, but about the Baltimore Orioles. We'll start with the Phillies, though. They sit at 34-34 as we were recording this episode here, playing pretty good baseball, 8-2 in their last 10. Is this where the Phillies thought they would be right now, sitting at 500 when the season first started?
Yeah, I can't say that's where they thought they would sit. I mean, obviously, bringing in Dave Dombrowski, who's had success with the Red Sox, had some success with the Tigers back, way back. Obviously, this payroll has expanded. I think they're the fourth highest payroll in baseball, third or fourth, something like that. So, I mean, you can't exactly be happy as a Phillies fan, such as myself. I mean, I got two teams, whatever, at me or whatever. But it's one of those deals where I just think getting Trey Turner, obviously, Schwarber, Castellanos last year, I just think overall the team has underperformed. Now, you mentioned obviously they're 8-2 in the last 10. I think they are starting to turn that corner. I still see them as a wild card playoff team. Just they need to stay consistent. Their fifth starting pitcher. Basically, it's like if you go on any site, it's an empty space. Like they don't even have a listed fifth pitcher, but it's really Dylan Covey, who's awful. He's just every time he goes out there, he gets shelled. So that's a problem. Their bullpen has been decent, but it's just if they don't hit, they don't, or if they hit, then they don't pitch, or if they don't pitch, they don't hit. It's just been inconsistent, but as of late, they have turned the corner a little bit.
You talk about the bullpen, especially the back end of a bullpen. It's important to every championship team, no matter what you do. And when you got a guy by the name of old Craig Dangly Arm Kimbrell in the back end there to finish things off, it's not really a recipe for success. And you think with the money that you spend, you go out and find a guy that's maybe not on the tail end of his career as they did with Craig Kimbrell this year with a 2-year deal. I think they gave him.
Yeah, and they gave him some serious money. I didn't really love that move either. He's an old – so obviously picking up some veterans isn't always a bad thing, but pitching is a little bit – I mean, you're seeing it with the Mets, obviously, with Scherzer and DeGrom both at about 40 years old there. Or Scherzer and Verlander. DeGrom's a whole other injury story. But, yeah, I mean, Kimbrell, I would say he's past his prime for sure. Like, I know you've talked about him at length in your show about the Phillies a week or so ago. I don't fully trust that guy either. I mean, he had some really, really good years, especially with the Braves, but I don't know if I wouldn't say he's a shell of himself, but he's probably 3/4 of what he used to be. So
You look at that that National League East, which was supposed to be one of the better divisions in baseball, and it turns out it hasn't been thus far. With the Mets floundering, as you said, the Braves are running away with it basically. But you have a team, the Miami Marlins, who are kind of doing the same thing as your Baltimore Orioles are doing in the American League or the National or the American League West. Fucking 6 divisions, tough for me to keep track of. I can't count to 6 this early in the morning. But a team like the Phillies should have been contending maybe for the division because the Mets have stumbled. The Nationals are who they're. We knew they were going to be awful. Is this something that the Phillies just got off to a rough start and just couldn't recuperate?
Yeah, I will say this. I mean, obviously they get rid of Girardi last season around this time, and they took off. That current manager they have, Rob Thompson. I know he's a veteran of the game. I think he was a part of the Yankees coaching staff at one point
For a long time. Yeah.
He has. I mean, and they say he's different behind closed doors. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Obviously, I don't know. I'm not connected like that. But man, that guy has no soul when he's talking to the media. And I don't know if that's contagious, but if you watch the Phillies, you watch the Mets, there's just certain teams out there that kind of lack focus especially in the field. Like you'll just see them, they'll be throwing the ball around. I mean, a ball go over, a ball go under Brandon Marsh's glove, for example. Like it's just, I watch a lot of Phillies. I watch a lot of Orioles, just those two teams in particular, but I try and watch a lot of baseball in general. And there's a lot of teams that don't look like that. So I often think, does that reflect the manager being too loose? And then maybe like Brandon Hyde on the Orioles, if somebody lets a ball go under the glove, he's like, hey, your ass is on the bench. Now you're talking to these guys that, I mean, Harper's making 30 million, Trey Turner, 30 million, Schwarber upwards of 20 something. Castillo, like they're all just, they almost, it's kind of like the prisoners are running the asylum to a certain degree, I would say, because these guys are, it's going to be hard to tell, Nick Castellanos, hey man, go sit on the bench. But you're making 25 million. Like we're going to utilize that guy for everything he's got. Maybe that's a problem. I don't know.
I could see that being a problem. Like you even go to you go to like American Legion or high school baseball or high school hockey or whatever. A team will take. That's a good point, Aaron. That a team will basically take the lead of their coach or their manager or whatever it might be, and if they're a little too lax, a little too this and not regimented sometimes, like you don't want to go to the other side where we're all a bunch of assholes, because then you got a team of assholes, right? But like if you have a lax manager who lets the guys play and everything else, like you said, the inmates running the asylum, as Harper probably could, because he's been the golden boy since he was 14 years old, I guess. And it's one of those things, and he hasn't really, I mean, he's got an MVP, but he hasn't really produced any championship caliber seasons in his career. And you get a guy like Thompson, who does seem a little bit lax and a little you don't want to go to the other side of the thing where Girardi was a drill master, I guess. There's got to be a happy medium in between there somewhere. And Rob Thompson, maybe there's a reason why he never got a manager job in the first place. And maybe he only got that job last year because it was a last ditch effort. He was already there. So let's just give him the job. And now they're kind of, for lack of a better term, they might be stuck with the guy.
Yeah. I think obviously people were even calling for his head a couple of weeks ago to be fired and everything else, and like there's always that, well, that World Series hangover as far as like, well, he got us there, we can't get rid of him. But hey, I mean, if you put a roster together such as the Phillies, so much money is spent and they're not producing, like somebody's gonna have to pay the price. Now, like we said, I mean, they turned the corner. They seem to be, I mean, they just took 2 out of 3 from a really good Diamondbacks team, which I'm crazy. I'm even saying that, but he just doesn't. I don't know. It's like watching paint dry when you see that guy. I mean, and the Belichicks of the world are like that too. And then he goes and rips people a new asshole every practice. But I'm not sold on quote unquote Philly Rob, as they call him. He's not. He doesn't seem like that type of guy where it's like, man, the players fear that guy. I don't think anybody in that clubhouse. I think Harper. They probably fear Harper more than they fear Rob Thompson.
Well, that's the thing. Like what more motivation do these guys need? Because they're all, like you said, they're all making money a lot. They've got a lot of guys making a lot of money on that ball club. Like it's crazy. And the motivation has to be there from an external force. And like you said, Thompson isn't really the guy. Trey Turner's been an absolute, like we thought that this contract was going to be a bit of a wreck near the end of it. It's an 11-year deal, 300+ million sheets. can he turn it around? He's been playing better as of late, but you give a guy $30 million his first, you at least expect 1 or 2 years at the beginning of the contract to be well worth it. But is it just a matter of that the wallet got a little bit heavy now he can, or is it just a thing that, you know what, that wallet gets behind you and everything else, and it gets between your ears like, man, I'm making this much money, I got to be better, and you start thinking too much.
Yeah, I mean, he's played obviously the Nationals, the Dodgers. I don't think those fan bases will quite be as noisy if you're playing bad as Philadelphia. Obviously, Philadelphia is like, what have you done for me lately? And by lately, it's like, what did you do yesterday? Because I mean, if you
Afternoon, yeah,
like if you're slumping, it's they're gonna let you hear it. I mean, they let Harper hear it for the first couple of weeks when he wasn't performing. I think, I mean, he's starting to like, you know, you alluded to it. He's starting to turn it around a little bit. I mean, he's hitting 250. I mean, that's not, this guy's a lifetime 300 hitter. He has to get on base more just in general. I mean, his speed is a whole threat within itself. That's a whole game within itself. I think, to answer your question, is I think it's a little bit too noisy in Philly for him right now. I think he's starting to find his way as a lot of these guys are, but Castellanos really didn't have a great season last year, and now he's hitting like a 315, you know, coming in or something like that, you know, well above 300. So, I mean, maybe it takes a full season, which obviously the fans don't want that, and no one wants to hear that. But maybe I think he ends the season probably around 270 in my opinion. I don't think it's a fully lost season. I think it'll be better than Castellanos' first year, but I expect him to make that jump next year, like Castellanos has, for whatever reason. Maybe it's the money and maybe it's just the new environment and the fans. Lousy kind of excuse, because if you can hit a ball, you should be able to hit a ball. But there's a human aspect to this too, I guess.
Well, that's just it that I find odd, because I've never been to Philly, and I don't profess to be a Philly fan, whether it be the Eagles, the Flyers, the Phillies, or whatever it might be, or the 76ers. Of course, I'm not a basketball fan. I care less about any of those teams, but like, it's not a surprise that Philly fans are tough. You would think before you go there, you would have that conversation with somebody who's in the organization, because you're going to get paid no matter what. Whether you get 28 million a year or 30 million a year, I think you're going to be okay. Like, it'll be fine. You'll figure that out. But you would think that before you sign that contract, and this goes with every big contract that gets signed, you go, okay, do I want to go here? The fan base is a little bit difficult. They expect a champion. So like, when these guys sign these contracts, there's got to be some conversations that are had internally and externally with these players that go, maybe this won't be for me. Like I can play in certain places and live in anonymity, hit 280, get paid, maybe win something, maybe not win something, because a lot of, like, you got to think, this isn't even a thought, this is the facts. A lot of people don't win championships, and so getting paid, I think, like, yes, you want to win as a competitor, but big picture, if somebody wanted to pay me $30 million a year and I never win a championship, I think between my ears I would be okay.
Yeah, no, I think
like, you want to win, Aaron, but like, if you don't, well, fuck, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends where you're at in your stage of your career too, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Turner got one with the Nationals. I don't think he was out of there yet. I could be wrong on that though. I can't say I'm.
He probably does. Didn't he get that phony one with the Dodgers as well?
He, at least, I think he has one.
Let's in there somewhere.
Yeah, one way or another. I mean, he went from obviously a Nationals team that peaked. Maybe he left before, and then gets to the Dodgers, and probably, I think he was on that World Series team. Regardless, he's been on teams that have knocked on the door, been close. I think, you know, obviously he has a good friendship with Harper. Maybe that played into it, maybe it didn't. I don't know. Obviously, but you bring it up, a good point. I think Manny Machado, our guy Mike Trout. I think those guys, like, I think if Machado never wins a World Series, he won't be losing even a minute of sleep. There's guys out there that I think that do want it, and I think maybe, you know, there were enough eggs in the basket for Turner to come to Philly. Maybe it was just the money. Maybe he got 25 million offered by other teams. I'm surprised, honestly. I know you guys have Volpe, you know, in the shortstop position, but I'm shocked that the Yankees didn't go balls to the wall on Trey Turner, though, because when he's on, he's special, obviously, but I think, you know, here getting long-winded again. I think I think them sitting down and saying, hey, they should play a montage of clips of people getting booed, like Phillies players getting booed by Philadelphia fans, because it doesn't prepare you for. I mean, that city is brutal. I've been to plenty of Phillies games, and just the things that are uttered by, and I'm sure it is the same way in Yankee Stadium, that those are two fan bases like that, but nothing. I don't think anything prepares you for that until you're actually in that uniform and you're gripping that bat tight. Like, man, these motherfuckers are a little bit different,
Well, that's just the thing. You don't lose your skill. You lose that space between the ears. I talk about it a lot with athletes on this stupid show that I do on a daily basis here at 1420 in the morning with Aaron Riley from Bruliana Sports. Like, I talk about it a lot. Like, you don't lose your skill. You lose that 6 to 8 inch between your ears, depending on your hat size. And you start gripping it a little bit. And with baseball, when you start gripping a little bit, it can be a very tough game to play, because you fail 7 out of 10 times, you go to the Hall of Fame. You fail 8 out of 10 times, you don't play. It's that simple.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's a game where, and they were talking about this on the Michael Kay show yesterday, that is booing in baseball actually counterproductive to the success of the team? Like, it might be, because like if a pitcher has the heebie-jeebies and he's all over the place and you start booing him, that's not going to help. If Trey Turner's up there hitting 240 and you're booing him, everybody, I mean, there's people that can block it out better than others. Don't get me wrong. If I was a baseball player getting booed, I don't know if if my underwear would be dry by the end of the game, because I'd just be trying so hard. I'd just probably shit myself.
100%.
But it's maybe it is counterproductive for some. I mean, there's these guys like Joey Gallo. I think New York was too much for him. There's guys that like don't maybe Lindor on the Mets. He hasn't been the same since he's gotten there. So it's I don't know. Maybe some of these places you gotta either you have it or you don't mentally, and it's very, very hard to change that, I think.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, nowadays, like these guys that they when they're like the guys who are in their getting into their prime now, they played on these travel teams as kids, and they've been put on this pedestal for such a long time. And this is the first time in their lives they've actually been ever shown any kind of pushback in their lives. And when you get booed, when all you've been told since the age of 5 or 6 was how great you are, and then all of a sudden you have 40,000 or 30,000 people disagreeing with what your mommy had to say, it can be a great big change between the years for these guys, because a lot of these guys, like we talk about before when you've been on the show, is that these guys don't really face adversity at all. And when somebody says you're not as good as you've been told you are, that can be a big kick in the pills for these guys. Like you said, is something else. You look at this lineup though, with Harper and Turner and Schwarber, Castellanos, Realmuto. That's a pretty stacked lineup. When you got 4, 5, 6 guys that should be hitting better than they are, will they eventually catch up to the stats in the back of their baseball card and do something and maybe make the playoffs and do some damage like they did last year? Because like you said, they were pretty much right here when they fired Girardi last year and brought in Rob Thompson. Is it, with that lineup, is there any way this team can't find a way?
I think there is ways that they can't. I think they will. I just think it's too much talent. It's just, I mean, it's absurd if you think about, like, when I grew up with the Phillies, there were a couple guys. Like, there was like Chase Utley, you had Jimmy Rollins, Ryan Howard, and then there was a bunch of decent guys. Yeah, but this is like, that's what's kind of weird about this Phillies team, is like they grab this guy from this team, they grab this guy from the. It's a Dave Dombrowski, like, definitely a project, because he did the same thing with Detroit. He's not a big farm system guy. He's go out and get as much talent as possible and load the roster and try and make it and score as many runs as possible, which they're starting to do that. I think it's so weird. Like, Schwarber sucked until June 1st, and then this is every single season.
It's almost like you should tell that guy, could you just go away until June 1st, year after year? Just go and eat, or whatever it is you do, and just eat some more or whatever. And then June 1, show up, because he was a bit of a detriment to this club for the first 2 months of the season.
Yeah, it's and I get it. Like, they're gonna put him in there. They're paying him. He gets more at bats, gets to see the ball more. But like, he really doesn't. He's still, I think, under 200 or right at 200. He's not gonna hit for a good average. His batter's eye seems to get better. I've been watching them a lot lately, and He seems to walk a good bit, which is surprising for a guy like that. But man, just watching him, like it's almost like his mechanics don't look good. He looks awful in the outfield. He doesn't look like an athlete by any means. He looks like somebody would be at a dive bar, every single night. But that guy just somehow, some way, he gets his hands around that ball, and that thing just, I mean, he has so much power. It's insane. Like you would never think looking at that guy. He doesn't. But this roster, I mean, this lineup is really good. Obviously, missing Hoskins with the torn ACL. I think that's not like a huge loss, but it is substantial. I'd say it like that. Like that's a hole where like you guaranteed yourself like 20 to 25 to 30 home runs with him in there, and being out all year, you don't have that. But yeah, there's really no excuse. I think it's the pitching that's going to be the biggest issue if they don't go all the way.
Nolan Wheeler got to be the guys. When you got two top of the end guys like that, they got to be the guys night in, night out, and not pitch to a 4.5 ERA. I know ERA for some reason, wins and losses don't matter to the analytics guys anymore, but it's just they got to eat more innings, and that's the one thing that I've noticed. They've really got to start eating more innings because the more I think we talk about this, the more people you get involved in a baseball game, there's a bigger chance they're going to screw things up because that's what human beings generally do. When you get more people involved in something, it never goes very well. I switched things a little bit. You talked about Dombrowski, how he just likes to add talent and not build through the farm system. Your Baltimore Orioles, that's all they do is build through the farm system. They are playing something else right now. They probably be in first place in the American League East without that start by the Tampa Bay Rays, a 13-0 to start the season, whatever it was. Is this the biggest surprise in baseball?
I have to say yes. I know you had somebody on from Belly Up. I can't remember exactly who, and he alluded to the Rangers. I think the Rangers, I wouldn't say they expected to be this good, but they had higher hopes, I would say, coming into this season. I mean,
they
obviously
spent some dough and they wanted to be there, right?
Right. Like their rotation has a ton of money wrapped up in it. Obviously they get Simeon and Seager a year or so ago. Like it's kind of amazing to see where this Orioles team has come from and now where they are. I am still a pessimist, so I still worry about the bullpen and I still worry about the rotation at times with this team. I don't know if I fully have trust in. It's a lot of young guys. It's a lot of unknowns, a lot of question marks still, but I obviously can't complain. Second in the AL East. Gunnar Henderson is on a tear. I mean, that guy, there were fans calling for him to get sent down about a month ago because he was, he's like 1 for 20 something at one point and things, but you got to let these kids develop. I mean, not everybody's going to light the world on fire. But I really do believe that Rutschman coming up and just, it seems like he's such a positive influence on the pitching staff and just a positive guy overall. It's not all the time that you find somebody like that and somebody that's so young and mature and excelling at the major league level. I mean, he should be an all-star. He's leading catchers in all-star voting right now in the AL. So I'm not going to say it's all him, but I think he plays a bigger part than most people see.
Yeah, it's funny how a kid, like I call him a kid, 'cause he drafted in 2019 out of Oregon, I think it was, and he'd come up and you have a guy. Usually catchers have to develop a little bit more, and they got to learn the game a little bit, and they got to deal with pitchers. They got to deal with pitchers because pitchers can be prima donnas and everything else, and calling games and doing what he's doing. He's been nothing short of fantastic for that Orioles team. Like funny that you brought him up. I mean, of course you are. There's like he's just been so good, and you have to build from the back from there out up the middle, and they seem to be doing that in Baltimore. Seem to be doing things the right way.
Yeah, it's I can't say they have a history of doing things the right way. There's been long stretches where they doesn't seem like they care much about anything. But with this young talent that they do have, there's still some kids that need to come up. And I think there might be a little bit long-winded in how they bring these guys up, but I can't argue with the success that obviously Rutschman's having. I mean, there's been a ton of these guys are products of the farm system. I mean, Austin Hayes, Ryan Mountcastle, like most of these guys are. It's a total flip flop from the Phillies team we were talking about. This team is built from the farm, from the draft, and obviously the Phillies have gone out and spent the money. So it's definitely interesting. I mean, it's crazy they have a better record than the Phillies do in a much harder division, which is hard to do. I'm not going to lie. So I mean, more power to him right now. I worry we're gonna hit one of these, like, 6-7 game losing streaks out of nowhere, which I wouldn't be shocked. Like I said, it's just I fear how this team's gonna respond because they are a bunch of young bucks, I guess you could say, other than Kyle Gibson's like a grandpa on this team. But yeah, it's interesting. I just want to see him make the playoffs, like I always tell you.
It's funny you say that. Like you expect it to happen with the Orioles, and you hope it's not. I know it's going to happen with the Yankees. I know they're going to go through a stretch where they're not going to be very good and everything else. And I just don't have much faith in that Yankee team. We'll have you on maybe in a week or so. We'll talk about that again, about the Yankee season to date. But speaking of the Yankees, you guys got my main man, Aaron Hicks. Hicks to the rescue. And he hasn't been bad at all. Actually, was it just a change of scenery for this guy? Because like we were talking earlier with the Phillies and guys getting booed, Hicks was getting booed relentlessly. He wasn't even in the lineup some nights. He just come out to get a piece of gum and they were booing him in the Bronx. Things weren't going well for Hicks. Has Hicks been a pretty good addition for the Baltimore Orioles? And look, a bit of a he's not an old player, but an older player to maybe bring some maturity to this young Baltimore team.
Yeah, it seems like obviously when things are going well with an organization, like, it's just a domino effect. Like, obviously you mentioned how the Orioles have had a lot of success with the farm system and quote unquote the number one farm system in baseball and things. It just seems like they threw a line out on the boat. They said, all right, we'll take Aaron Hicks. Boom, picked him up. And it's just like he's lighting the world on fire. I mean, he coming into yesterday, he was hitting like 360 with the Orioles, which is absurd. I have a good amount of close friends that are Yankees fans, and I always used to be like, oh my God, that guy sucks. Like, you're the Yankees. Why are you putting up with this guy? Like, he can't hit shit and this and that, and giving him a hard time because, I expect everybody on the Yankees to hit 300, but it's like, man, like it's a different person watching him with the Orioles. I think that market was too big for him. That stage was too big. I mean, he's coming from the Twins. Obviously, that's not a huge market like the Yankees and everything else. And I think he just got burned out up there. And yeah, I mean, he's really filling in for Mullins until he comes back. But I mean, like, if he continues to hit like this, you gotta kind of find a spot for him somewhere. And I mean, he's playing good defensively. I can't complain. They're paying him to basically play for us. So I'll take it any day of the week. It's crazy. I never thought. I thought he'd come in and.
I'm surprised you don't have an Aaron Hicks jersey. To be honest with you, I was quite shocked when you came on the air today. You didn't have a Hicks jersey going.
I was definitely a hater of. I was a big time hater of Aaron Hicks on the Yankees because I was just like, man, this seems like a good guy from what everybody says. But yeah, he's sitting at 351 on the O's. He was hitting 188 on the Yankees. It's just. You can't make that type of stuff up, but he'll probably come back to earth eventually. But if he hits 260, we got him for nothing. So
I was at Yankee Stadium on July 1st, ESPN game on a Sunday night against the Red Sox, July 1st, 2018. Hicks hit 3 home runs. I thought this guy's going to the Hall of Fame. I think that's the last time he got a fucking hit, I think. And that's a long time ago. But yeah, Hicks, he just needed a change of scenery. I think one of those things once it's between your ears and you can't get out of your own way there, like once it happens there. Back into the bullpen. This guy has been unbelievable. Felix Bautista, what's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, the mountain as they call him. Yeah, he's he was like an international, like a Dominican Republic. He was scouted and things like that. And I guess they just kind of found him out of nowhere. He didn't have the best control when he first came up, but man, if he can just get the ball near the strike zone, he's pretty hard to hit. I know he blew a game against the Yankees, a while back there, but nobody's perfect, obviously. But I do remember that game in particular for some reason. And you guys went on and won that in extra innings and everything else. But yeah, he's. I mean, that splitter is devastating, and that fastball upwards of like 102. Excuse me. So, yeah, he's been good. I can never say his name right. It's like Yennier Cano. Them two together is. I mean, it's usually lights out. I mean, Cano's been a little bit off as of late, but I still think his ERA is under 2. So I'm kind of nitpicking, but these guys can go on stretches where they don't even allow hits and things like that, base runners for that matter. So as long as he can control his pitches, he's pretty much automatic.
No, that's got to be a calming influence a little bit when you can go out and score maybe 3, maybe 4 runs and say, okay, we can win this ball game today because we have to just get to the 7th. If we can get to the 7th inning, we're in good shape. We do, and then it can put a little bit of a you don't, like I said, you don't got to get a lot of arms involved and a lot of hands involved because, like I said, you get more hands involved, it's going to get fucked up somehow, and it usually does. The Orioles are not known for spending money, to say the least, and not known for going out and getting guys. But now they got a team right now. They're going to make the playoffs. They got to go 500 and they're in from this point on. Go out and get an arm. Go out and get a bat. I wouldn't worry too much about bats at the trade deadline. But at the deadline, do you go out and get another arm and get a starting pitcher? Because right now, you just never know what could happen. Wild card teams have won the World Series in the past. The American League is wide open. I don't think like the Tampa. I don't expect them to keep this up forever. It's just the way things go. And Tampa will Tampa. They always people always kind of stroke the Tampa Bay Rays up, but they've never won anything. Yeah, they get there. Could this Baltimore Oriole team go out and the GM go to ownership and say, hey, can we add an arm or two here?
Yeah, he might have to put him in a reverse chokehold to get him to spend any money. But yeah, I think they should. I think they need to. I mean, they're overachieving, I think, still with this roster that they do have. I think they overachieved last year, and obviously they missed the playoffs last year, but they're progressively getting better, and I know their owner looks at it like, I mean, he made some comments in the offseason that is just insanely bad, just awful about how the concerts mean more and things like that. And they want to build a complex similar to the Braves where it's an entertainment space and this and that. But regardless of that, I think the GM's doing what he can with what he has, at his disposal. I do think they need to add a starting pitcher, maybe from a White Sox team. The name Dylan Cease comes up a lot. It's just like that team's probably going to sell. They're not very good at all. They're actually awful. But yeah, I think they need to get a starting pitcher and really a bullpen arm would be helpful as well. But because you can, like you said, you can never have too many guys. And Grayson Rodriguez looked good at times, but they had to send him back to AAA to kind of figure it out. So that's a starting pitcher they've already kind of lost, per se.
A guy I would look at that's up for free agency and he's up for a renewal, I guess, or he can opt out of how the verbiage is Marcus Stroman with the Cubs. I'm not a big Stroman guy. I think he's a candidate for nozzle of the month every month of the year. No, even if it's not baseball season, but he's having himself a great year. He's not going to re-sign or re-up with the Cubs. I wouldn't think. He's going to get a hell of a payday. Somebody will overpay for him guaranteed in the offseason. Could you see him going and say, if the Cubs take on half his salary or whatever it might be, saying, okay, like we'll trade a couple prospects because the Cubs are prospect huggers all of a sudden. They got their one World Series, so they're good for another 80, 90 years. Do you see something like would a Stroman be a good fit? Because the guy can pitch. If you get 10 starts out of the guy and whatever you get in the playoffs, it wouldn't hurt.
No, I'd aggressively go after. I mean, even on the Mets, maybe as a off the field and as a person type deal, I'm not a big fan of him either. But that guy can definitely pitch. I've seen him throw 2-3 hitters multiple times. He'll go complete game for you. 3-4 times a year. Like he's really underrated. I don't think he's talked about really at all. And when he's on,
because he does enough talking about himself for everybody else, I think is the problem there, Aaron. Well, that guy's a dickhead. That's my thoughts anyways, but
yeah, no, I would gladly that's a great name you bring up though, because most of the time he is on, like he's pretty consistent. He was consistent on that Mets team that scored like no runs for him last year. So yeah, I'd be more than happy with him. I'd like a guy with a couple of years of team control, personally, just because I don't like these rental type deals, especially for a team that like the O's where you give up 2 prospects. It's like, well, all right, now we're not going to go out and get somebody else because we went out and got that guy. Like there's a short list on how much they'll really go out and make moves. So if they're going to make 3 or 4 moves, like let it be a guy that has 2 or 3 years of team control, then you can flip him for prospects or something like that. At least get something other than half a year out of him. But if they're going to do something, I'd rather them, do that than just sit on their heels and be like, oh, we'll sneak into the playoffs, because I do think they will eventually come down to earth. Like I said, this bullpen does concern me in some ways. Like that Colombo guy is decent, but he throws some curveballs that seem like they hang in the air for 10 seconds before they cross the
Like
plate.
I threw it, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, like they need to add. There's no question at all. I don't care about the record. I don't care if they're this far, if they're still sitting in second place a couple games out. You can always come back to the earth, and you can never have too many arms, like ever. So
That's the thing. Like if you don't go for it and then it doesn't happen, you should have added an arm. You had a chance and you don't go for it, and then you're another 10 years away because this group is overachieving right now, and then or they're underachieving, and like you just don't know because winning is so hard. And if you don't go for it a little bit year in year out and give yourself a chance, then what? Then all of a sudden you're the Boston Red Sox 80 years later, or you're the Chicago Cubs 87 years later, or the Cleveland Guardians, whatever they're called this week. It's like they've been looking for a World Series championship, and they got close a number of times back in the 90s, and even in that 2016 series with the Cubs. Like you gotta, I think you gotta go for it. Yeah, you want to, like being a prospect hugger is one thing, and then having prospects is one thing. And I wish this was a Brent original. Prospects are cool, but rings are cooler, right? And so like I think you gotta find a way to go for it. Like you want to have team control and everything else because you have payroll constraints. But man, oh man, these guys got so much money. I don't think anybody really has payroll constraints.
No, it's and like you said, you got to seize the opportunity. Like next season, the O's could be 5 games under 500. Like the Phillies could be 10 games. You don't know, and you don't know how for the Phillies, for example. I know Aaron Nola wants to get paid, and he hasn't pitched even close to what they expect him to. So they're not going to re-sign him in the offseason. Like, and they expected him to be either a 1A or a 1B starter with Wheeler. Like you don't know what these guys. I don't care what they did in the past. Like Garrett Cole could come out next season and have a 4 ERA. Look at Verlander. He's 40. He's 40 years old, but he has a 4.2 ERA, and he's never had an ERA over 4 in 8 or 9 years or something like that. So, like right here, right now, you have a team that's playing well. It seems like the team chemistry on the Orioles is even stronger than the Phillies for whatever. Like I said, I watch them both. So
you get guys that play together in the minors, that helps, right? You get guys that face some adversity together, that helps, and not guys who are just thrown together and said, here, you're all really good, so you better win. It doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these guys aren't exactly like Rutschman's on a rookie deal. Like these, that's another thing. Like it's kind of like the NFL where if your quarterback's on a rookie deal, you better load up everywhere else because eventually you're going to pay that guy.
You have to pay this guy.
Yeah, so,
and they all get overpaid, every single one of them, right? And it's just it's the way it is, and then you don't know what that big wallet can do to their persona and how they're going to start playing, because all of a sudden their wallet means a lot more and their endorsements deals mean a lot more than anything else. And so I don't know. I think when you get a chance to go for it, you got to go for it, because it might not happen next year. You never know what might happen in the offseason with a guy where he just might decide, you know what, I don't want to play in Baltimore anymore. I don't want to play in New York anymore. I don't want to do this, because these guys always get their way. They like, no matter what sport it is, when they say, I'm good, I'm going to go over here, they might meet a girl who lives in LA and say, I'm going to go to LA now. And that's just the way things work. These guys are so it's just different than it was X amount of years ago. I hate to sound like the old guy, get off my lawn guy, but it's the truth. Anyways, Aaron, what do you got going on at Bruliana Sports? What's happening?
Not enough, that's for sure. I got to get back on the horse. I say that all the time. I got to get back on the horse, but I am going to start trying to do more YouTube work and YouTube shorts on Phillies and Orioles and stuff like that. And just kind of drill baseball as it goes along here. Cause just like you, I enjoy the game, more than any other sport. So, it's obviously that's the only sport on right now too. Basketball finished up and I could really care less about that either. But, the NHL finals wasn't the two teams I wanted it to be by any stretch. So, yeah, just going to try and, talk more baseball, get some more people on here. And, if anybody wants to come on the show, just shoot me a DM at Bruliana Sports without the T on Twitter. And we'll talk and go back and forth on whatever team. I don't care. We can talk about whatever.
Yeah, you talk about the hockey, the NHL playoffs, and the Stanley Cup. The Stanley Cup Finals were a bit of a dud, done in 5 games, and Vegas wins. I read this morning that the ratings were really, really low, and it's not a surprise to me, because up here in Canada there wasn't many. Like, unless you actually fell into it. Nobody was really watching. Like, it was just two teams that don't have a lot of buzz. Yes, Vegas has they're only 6 years old and everything else, but it didn't create a lot of buzz for the traditional hockey markets. And I'm not saying that Canada is the only traditional hockey markets, but across Chicago and New York and everywhere else, Philadelphia, like the northern, where they get snow, like those states didn't really pay attention to the Stanley Cup Finals.
No, and obviously, like, Vegas being a newer team in the league, like, it's not going to have that crazy draw. Like, maybe Seattle's fan base will start becoming, that's a cold weather climate and things like that. But yeah, I mean, having the Panthers in the finals, like, I mean, does anybody in Florida really care? I don't know. It doesn't seem like that building gets really electric at any point either. So
no, they'll go back to having maybe 8,000 again next year in Old Sunrise, Florida, because I tell you what, the last place I'd want to be in on a Saturday afternoon is in a hockey rink if I lived in Florida. But that's just me, anyways. Aaron, thanks very much for doing this. We'll have to do it again sometime soon. Maybe we'll get Dave on here and we'll have a BS session about God knows what, whatever me and Dave end up talking about it on a twice a week basis. It's always an adventure with old Dave Van Rovers. Anyways, Aaron, thank you very much for joining us on the show, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks again for Aaron from Brilliant Sports for joining us here on 1420 in the morning. Talk a little bit of baseball. It's a great time always talking with Aaron. Another Belly Up Sports Network podcast, Belly Up Media. Go to bellyupsports.com and listen to all the great podcasts and read some great articles at Belly Up Sports. And now, a word from our sponsor at Caldera Labs and calderalabs.com. Summer is right around the corner, and as the sun shines brighter, your skin deserves the utmost attention. Fortunately, our friends at Caldera Lab are here to ensure your skin is well prepared for the season ahead. Ever since I incorporated Caldera Lab into my routine, taking care of my skin has never been simpler. Their products are clinically proven and visibly help reduce wrinkles, fine lines, and signs of aging. Gain confidence and an impeccable first impression this summer. Don't miss out on joining the skincare revolution by joining countless men. Use code 1420lab at calderalab.com/1420 to enjoy an exclusive 20% offer on their 5 finest products. Caldera Lab creates high-performance men's skincare products, and the regimen leads off their product lineup, a twice-day routine to transform your skin. Inside the bundle, you find the clean slate, the base layer, and the good. Caldera Lab is made with top-tier ingredients that make your skin look better every day. Help reduce your wrinkles, fine lines, and signs of aging. Avoid being the butt of everyone's joke and take a leap to skincare royalty with Caldera Lab. Get 20% off and at Caldera Lab by using promo code 142LAB, 1420LAB each and every day, and gets yourself something to make that skin looking great. I use it every day. It's transformed my skin. Everybody tells me, a lot of people have been telling me how great my skin actually looks. Deanne raves about it all the time. So it's very important to take care of your skin, especially when you get a little bit older. We tend to think it's just you're going to look great all the time, but it's not the way it works anymore, kids. And as we're out in the sun a little bit more, you need to take care of that a little bit more. So you have to go out there and make sure you go to Caldera Labs and use promo code 1420LAB at calderalab.com. Next up, birthdays. And on this day this was a bad one in Canadian sports history. On this day in 2011, the Boston Bruins defeated the Vancouver Canucks 4-0 in Game 7 to win the Stanley Cup and end their 39-year drought. Tim Thomas was awarded the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP. But the thing people will remember the most about the riots that took place post-game on the streets of Vancouver, cars were set on fire, looting, property damage, fighting in the streets. Police cars were flipped over, pets' heads were falling off. It put a real black mark on Canucks fans and the city of Vancouver and that Stanley Cup final, which was a great Stanley Cup final. But on this day in 2011, that all went down in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Something that they really haven't lived down. It was a good run in Vancouver there for a while there. They had the Olympics, and then they had that Stanley Cup final that they probably should have, could have, but didn't win. But that was a real black mark on the city of Vancouver and the province. And it wasn't hockey fans that were doing it. It was a bunch of morons that were going to be going out there doing that regardless of what the outcome of that hockey game was, or they were going to be doing it on a Tuesday afternoon in May because they're idiots. Idiots tend to be idiots. And that's just kind of the way things work. And a happy birthday Happy 65th birthday to Baseball Hall of Famer Wade Boggs, 5 times American League batting champion, 12-time All-Star, was born on this day in 1958 in Omaha, Nebraska. Boggs more famously became famous post-career, known as the Chicken Man, and drank 107 beer, allegedly, on a cross-country flight while playing for the Tampa Bay Rays. That's quite impressive, actually. But anyways, Hall of Fame career, Boggs, one of the best ever played the game, hit .328 in his 18-year career with stops in Boston, a World Series for the Yankees in '96, and ended his career in Tampa Bay in 2005, and was enshrined into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 2005. So happy birthday to the Chicken Man, the beer drinker extraordinaire, Wade Boggs, one of the all-time greats to ever hit. He was a great player all around, great Red Sox player, great Yankee player, and then too bad he had to go to Tampa to finish it off. I think he actually had something in his contract. I could be wrong on this, but I think he finished his career with Tampa, but then he had to enter the Hall of Fame. It was in his contract as the first Tampa Bay Ray to go to the Hall of Fame. So I think he's wearing a Tampa hat at his Hall of Fame induction thing. Anyways, thanks very much once again to Aaron for joining us here at 14:20 in the morning. It was a great conversation. Always great to listen to Aaron. Make sure you guys go to Brutally Honest Sports and have a listen to his show. He's a fighter. He's a grinder out there. So make sure he's very knowledgeable when it comes to sport of baseball. And he's always a good interview to have on the show. And he's been on here 2 or 3 times. I've been on his show a couple of times as well. So we'll make sure we plug him. Make sure you go to our YouTube channel, subscribe to that today. And as always, it doesn't matter where you are, it's who you're with. We with Dave tonight. But anyways, have a good day, folks. We'll talk to you again tonight. You just listened to the 1420 Sports Bar Podcast. 4 beer with the sports talk and a whole lot more. We are part of the Belly Up Media Network. Let's get